welcome in to The Fade. I am Clay Travis, joined by Kelly Stewart at Kelly in Vegas in her horns down T-shirt as she gets ready for Kansas State on the road in Austin, alienating most of the people in the great state of Texas right off the top of the show. We will get to that game and many others. I actually want to ask you a question. First of all, Kelly, you were at the Halloween party, and then we went to, well, we did several things. Let's start with the weekend that was. Amazingly great gambling weekend for me. I went 5-2 in the NFL, 6-5 in the NFL in the college football, so solid. I just want to point out, I don't even know how your overall gambling went. We'll get to that in a sec. But let me just point out the failures of Kelly's trip to Nashville, in particular on our dinner on Friday. So, Kelly made the dinner reservation on the wrong day. Supposed to be Friday. She made it on Saturday. She then made the dinner reservation for 2 instead of 4, even though OutKick employee Chad Withrow and me were there with Ariel and Kelly. 3, once we were finally seated at the table, you thought you were ordering red wine. Instead, you ordered white wine. I am told that the bottles were not cheap. I don't even know what it cost. I know dinner was not cheap. I felt bad because you didn't know the difference between white and red wine on the menu, so I just ordered both bottles of wine, and I believe they were consumed. I want to offer, however, at this point, you an opportunity to defend yourself on how you could get the dinner date wrong, the number wrong, and also even what color wine you wanted to order wrong. The floor is yours.
Let's start off with the obvious. I clicked the wrong date on the Open Table app. The end. That was just unfortunate. I did catch it, however, when Chad, who does Hot Mic with Hutton, messaged me and said something about dinner. And I said, oh, Ariel and I are going to Bourbon Steak. And he goes, well, I'm coming too. I go, oh, cool. I didn't know you were buying dinner. And that was the end of the story. I never once heard from you other than, yeah, we'll meet you for cocktails before dinner. So I never changed it to 4 people.
You thought that I was going to come to the restaurant where you guys were eating and just stand and have a drink at the bar and then leave?
I'm not really sure what I thought. I'm not the type of woman to think that
to say, I'm going to be at the restaurant. I'm not just going to have a drink standing at the restaurant bar. If I'm meeting you 30 minutes before the dinner reservation or whatever it is, 45 minutes, I just presume that we go from drink at the bar into the dinner, and which, by the way, I was paying for. So I guess the only defense here is that you didn't think that you were going to get a free meal. And so you and Ariel, or maybe you were trying to avoid Withrow and me, and that's certainly possible.
Maybe just Chad. Okay, and as far as the wine goes, reading is hard. So I asked the sommelier for the book. I say, okay, I'm looking for an Italian red. The waiter opens the book. I look down, I see a bottle that I've had before that's normally double the price of that. I said, oh, wow, they have this wine. And it's surprisingly really cheap. And also there is all of these other conversations happening at the table. So I hurry, I ordered the bottle. She comes out. We are now having a very crazy conversation where the tables around us are literally looking at us like, what is going on there? And she shows me the bottle and I thought, well, that's weird. It's a turquoise label. I remember it being like maroon, but I didn't want to say anything. And she opened it up and she starts pouring and I go, oh, that would be white wine. And then, yes, I did feel bad because I was the one that ordered it. And Clay so kindly saved the embarrassment of me of admitting that to the sommelier without.
Well, the wine is ruined at that point. Once it's opened, I don't think they can still sell it. Maybe they would have pounded it in the back while they were cursing you. I will say, anybody that overhears conversation at my table, I think that the conversations at my table are way more interesting than the conversations that are at their table. I think most people would rather be sitting at my table than the table that they're at. I'll just say. I mean, I feel like the conversation's going to be way more entertaining. All right. So 0 for 3 already. Did you have a good gambling weekend in the NFL and in college football? I know you got the Broncos on the money line.
So I actually had I had the Broncos on the money line, which was just fun. That was a Halloween party bet. Ariel and I were perusing something on her phone and pops up Patrick Mahomes flu. And I said, all right, well, I'm in the great state of Tennessee. Let me open up my app and put in a nice little wager there. So that was fun. But I did have the Titans on Sunday as well as the Seahawks.
Right.
Good. I'm glad that you have a Titans fan admitting that that was a definite buy low spot on his team. And then I also had the Panthers, which was just an absolute disgusting game, but got the outright win there. As far as Saturday goes, I told this story on another show. I had a really great Saturday. I convinced Ariel we should come to town a little earlier because we needed to take a nap. And then I proceeded to watch the game on my phone as well as the TV. So we got KU money line. We got Wisconsin, covered the 14.5. And then as I was walking into your home, you guys they do a wonderful job with Halloween. And I usually hate haunted houses. But we're walking up. There's a graveyard. There's like a zombie looking guy. You can't tell who's like fake and who's real. And this guy comes around the corner, but I'm still watching the Cal USC game on my phone. And he tries to scare me. And I literally dropped an expletive. And I said, I just lost a 3-1 underdog. Nothing can surprise me now. And he just looked at me like, wow, you're not a very nice person. And I said, I'm so sorry. I know you're just trying to do your job. So Cal didn't get the points, not the money line. And unfortunately, same thing with Rice. So very close, but no cigar on the 65-1 parlay.
That would have been a hell of a payout. We're talking obviously to Kelly Stewart, aka Kelly in Vegas. My wife did a great job with the Halloween party, as she always does. Lots of details, everything else. Question for you and Ariel, who was also in town and does sports gambling as well. When we drove to the game and I was driving and you were there with all three of my boys and my wife, and there was the two of you in the car, there were 7 of us total. Did you feel like you were kind of going on a family vacation with us to all be in the SUV, like with me driving us to the football stadium?
No, actually, now that you say it, I didn't. But looking back, that's exactly what we were doing. We were like your 2 extra kids that you had to babysit. We had a great time. We definitely needed adult supervision at Nissan Stadium. Honestly, great place to watch a football game. We had great seats. Everybody was super friendly. Even the Falcons fans, I was surprised about. We had a couple of Falcons fans around us. And, sometimes gambling gets a little passionate, and everybody was wonderful.
Okay, let's go straight to Thursday Night Football. Then we'll dive into college football and the NFL. But we're about to have a party at the Travis household. I basically have my own frat now because I have 3 boys that are all super excited to watch this game. Titans-Steelers. I'm on the under 36.5. You nailed it. Titans were a home underdog against the Falcons. They won. Will Levis threw 4 touchdown passes. I'm still kind of staggered by that. I don't know. I was talking about this on my last show, Kelly. I don't know what the number you're getting is because I'm in Tennessee, and I feel like a lot of times you don't get the best numbers. The Steelers are down to -2.5 right now on the line where I am. Is that the latest number that you're getting, or is that a Tennessee special?
I think that's a Tennessee special. Pretty much on the odds board, it's 3, but I can see why. They know they're only going to get one-sided action there, right? They're going to get people that want to bet Tennessee, 3 being such a key number. Moving it to 2.5, though, does open you up for a nice teaser spot, particularly with this low total. I am not going to get involved in the side. I want to like the Steelers and their defense here, but I just have not been that impressed with the Steelers' offense at home. If this game was in Tennessee and I was catching 3 with Pittsburgh, I think I'd be all over Pittsburgh here. But I have just had this thing with the Steelers, betting them at home. They have just been so lackluster. And then you've got this buzz with Will Levis, right? 19 of 29, 238 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. He could not have looked any better. Let's just be honest. So I would have to say this might be a sell high spot on Tennessee, but Tennessee may surprise you, right? We know that Pittsburgh does much better in divisional home games than they do a non-divisional. So slight lean to the Titans here. But, man, if you can get them in a teaser, if they're at 2.5, I think that's the right play.
Yeah, I'm on the under. I think the reason, I was kind of nervous about this, I don't like playing the line here. I think you either say Titans are going to win or Steelers are going to win. Because I think if the Titans win, they're going to come out and they're going to win by like 10 points. I don't think it's going to be super close. But I kind of feel like the Titans are going to win a low-scoring game. And I like the under more than I do either side. So I'm on the under for sure. I think if I were deciding to play a side, I think I might take Titans money line here. All right, let's go into college football. You mentioned it's a big game. Kansas State on the road against Texas. This might be the last Kansas State-Texas game for God knows how long, since Texas and Oklahoma are headed into the SEC. What are you betting this game? Are you just going as a huge K-State fan? How would you break it down? What do you expect to see? I did not bet this.
Clay, no, and I did. I did take the 5 on Sunday when I was in Tennessee. The line started to come out. I did bet it early because I knew this one was only going one way. K-State could not have looked any better over the last 2 weeks. Granted, they did play TCU and Texas Tech, but this is something that I think we have to look at here. Let's look at Quinn Ewers and how much of a drop-off Malik really truly is. And I think that Malik Murphy is enough of a drop-off here that the line should have been about 3 points lower. So when K-State opened 5, I first did this like almost a head fake, like, what am I missing? Well, then I started to do a little bit deeper of a dive. Here's the problem. Texas's defense can't stop a quarterback. When they have play a quarterback that has a good running game, they are in big-time trouble. Well, guess what? K-State's got 2 of those guys, and Will Howard and Avery Johnson. And I joked on another show that Steve Sarkisian, who called him the freshman, might want to get familiar with his name. And I think it could be a very long day for this Texas defense. Now, on the other side, we know Texas is going to be the faster team. They always are the more athletic team. And K-State's defense really struggled, particularly against Troy in the secondary, Mizzou in the secondary, and Oklahoma State. Well, since that Oklahoma State game, Clay, that secondary has really stepped up. Unfortunately, K-State lost one of their best defensive players in Daniel Green. So sometimes when that does happen, we see some of these younger guys step up, and that's exactly what we've seen here. I actually bought a Kobe Savage jersey just for this game. He has a little NIL deal I thought I would support because that's who's going to be able to pick Malik Murphy off. And I think we're going to see at least a pick from him. I think this is going to be a hard-fought, really like probably fun game to watch from a fan perspective. I think it's going to be higher scoring. So I'm excited to see, but I got it 34-31, Kansas State.
That would throw everything into an uproar because while we're talking about the Big 12 race, I'll go ahead, tap the veins. Let me give you my blood bank guarantee. You tell me what I'm missing here. I think Oklahoma State's going to win outright against Oklahoma. And look, I know there's all these different aspects of analysis. Oklahoma State's going to be able to run the football, I think. Oklahoma has not played well the last 2 weeks against Central Florida. You just mentioned Kansas on the money line. Huge win for the Jayhawks. This could be, we don't know what's going to happen with Bedlam. I think it is going to be an electric atmosphere even beyond what is normal. I think Oklahoma State is going to win this game outright, and I'm scrolling through to check and see what the absolute latest number on this game is. I don't understand. Tell me what I'm missing. I bet this earlier in the week at 6.5. Oklahoma is still a 5.5 point favorite. What am I missing, Kelly? Like, this is my blood bank guarantee. I love Oklahoma State as the underdog here.
That's Kelly Stewart and Clay Travis money. That's what moved it from 6.5 to 5.5. This is also my best bet this week.
You're with me. You agree on this.
Yeah, actually, I was telling a couple of guys at your party, when you and I agree, I know the show's called The Fade, but it's been really good over the last month. And I didn't know how well this would play out, but I also like Oklahoma State a lot. This is a Mike Gundy-led team. We know so much about Mike Gundy, right? He has been there for so long. And here's the thing we know most about him. When he is a home underdog, he wins games outright. Yep. They either get blown out or they win outright. So they won 8 of their last 10. Look, you mentioned the struggles that since they beat Texas, Oklahoma, UCF, and then lost on the road to Kansas. I think they were getting a little too big for their britches, covering 7 straight against the number. And now they're just playing little brother before they waltz off to the SEC. And this little brother team, since beating Kansas State, has put together a nice 5-game win streak. They are absolutely going to be bowl eligible. They are absolutely going to be able to put up some big-time numbers against this Sooners defense. This team put up 600 yards in total offense last week. I want to know how the Sooners are going to stop them. I think that the plus 190, maybe even it might be down to plus 180 now for the Cowboys is definitely worth a money line sprinkle here, Clay, because I'm with you. They're going to win this game outright.
All right, let's talk about a couple of big games. I've got 17 bets. Kelly was upset.
Saw on Twitter.
She said that seems, yeah. Kelly took a shot at me on Twitter. And the reality is I just responded if it would be unfair, given that we're moving close to the holiday season, if Santa Clay had 17 gifts in his sack here, and I only gave you 16, that would be cruel. So I've got 17 of them, and I'll go through a lot of these, fast. But I want to talk about the games that everybody's going to be watching, because I'm sure, as you've seen, Kelly, people tend to bet the games that they are most likely to be watching. And a lot of times, you and Furman love betting games that have like 8 people watching. I bet all the games that the most people watch. So LSU Bama, I wanted to take LSU plus the points. Kelly, this was like 6.5. The line was 7 even. Some places looking ahead, like several weeks ago. This line comes out. I think Bama opened like 5 or 5.5. It's come down to Bama -3 and just stuck there. I don't feel comfortable enough in LSU winning this game outright, which to me, if I'm taking LSU +3, what I'm basically betting, right? Especially with Bama at home, I feel like the over is the play. So I bet this at 59.5. I think it's up to 60.5 or 61. The way I break it down is I don't think LSU will stop Alabama. I think they'll give up big plays. They've been susceptible to them all year. Jalen Milroe has been pretty good throwing the deep ball. And I don't think Alabama's going to stop Jaden Daniels and LSU. So I love the over here in Tuscaloosa in what is going to be, I think, the most consequential game of the weekend. What say you?
Yeah, I want to lay it with Alabama, Clay. I really do. I think this is a buy low spot on them. As you mentioned, some of the sportsbooks put out what they call game of the years or look ahead lines. So this seems really cheap for Alabama. And let's not forget, Alabama lost this game last year at LSU by 1 point, 32-31. So you'd have to think that there's a little revenge there on their minds. My problem is I just don't think this Tide team is built to like blow anybody out, right? Sure, are they playing better? Do they look a little more balanced? As you mentioned, Jalen Milroe, now that they're not, running a 3-quarterback carousel there, things have really progressed in Tuscaloosa. LSU, I just can't trust them. I don't trust their defense. I don't trust them to be able to finish games. Could this potentially turn into a shootout? Maybe. I'll tell you what I am going to do, though. At halftime, if Alabama is down, I will be betting Alabama second half. They have been one of the best second-half teams in the country all season long.
What do you love that we haven't? I mean, obviously, we talked about Oklahoma State. We talked about Kansas State, Texas, and we now talked about LSU, Bama. I would say those are the biggest of the weekend games. Are there any that you absolutely love? And then I'll run through my massive collection of winners for everybody.
Yeah, there's a few that are a little under the radar, but let's touch on the one everybody wants to talk about first, and that is USC, Washington. As I mentioned, I bet against USC the last couple of weeks. I did not cash the money line last week, but that is okay. Lincoln Riley's team, speaking of not playing defense, good grief. And now all of a sudden, everybody's ready to give Michael Penix Jr. the Heisman, but he's thrown some picks lately, and Washington is kind of on that same level as Oklahoma was, right? Just waiting to get beat, kept escaping. Well, I don't think they're going to escape this time in the Coliseum. Being a road favorite is a much different role than a lot of these teams are used to. Washington just 3-8 against the spread in their last 11 as a Pac-12 road favorite. That is not a good role for this team. Now, do I really want to be excited about USC? No, I don't. But this is the first time Lincoln Riley has ever been a home dog in his career. I have to take him up on it. Yep, I have to do it. So Lincoln Riley, 4-0 straight up versus unbeaten conference opponents, 3-0 against the spread as a conference underdog in the Pac-12. So I have to take him here. It pains me to do it with a team that cannot stop a nosebleed, but I do think we kind of see Washington fall back down to that mediocrity level now. And it's unfortunate because I have some significant bets and used Washington in a lot of college football pools, but this looks like a loser for them. And then a couple of games that nobody probably cares about, I'll touch on really quickly. Arkansas +6. I think they get the win in the Swamp for the first time ever, Clay. Florida, 6-point home favorite. I know the Hogs are not exactly the great SEC powerhouse that everybody thought they were going to be this year with KJ. But, man, something is really off here. You've got the Hogs off a bye. Could they go bowling? Are they going to go bowling? No. But could they rattle off 4 straight? Maybe. But another coach that has been wonderful as an underdog, Sam Pittman, 16-6-1 against the spread in his career. So I did take the 6 with the Hogs. Do I think they have a chance to win this one outright? I do.
That's funny that you mentioned that one, because I initially on my bet sheet wrote down that I was going to take Arkansas, and I was getting them at +6.5. And while I was sitting there looking at it, like the night before, I wrote it down, and as I sat down to write up my picks, I couldn't, in good conscience, take Arkansas. So I ended up hopping on Florida just because they fired Dan Enos, their offensive coordinator. And I felt like Florida looked so bad against Georgia. It's funny, I initially was all in on Arkansas. The more I thought about it, I ended up on Florida. Any others you've got that you want to hit? So we're on opposite sides on that one. We were almost on the same side.
We will we'll talk about this one. Not that a lot of people care about it because Maryland has had a really rough few weeks. But I got a little push from a buddy on this one. He said, hey, listen, Sharp Group played them at 10. They're now 8.5, and that's Maryland. Look, yeah, I could see this team losing by 3 scores or winning the game outright. I think this team that just lost to Northwestern probably got caught looking ahead here after the bye week, right? Nobody has Northwestern circled. They don't care. And, if you actually look at the stat box, it was even worse than if you had to watch that game. They benefited from 3 turnovers. I think this is Maryland's Super Bowl here versus Penn State, because guess who they have on deck? Michigan. Penn State has had Michigan circled, as they always do. I know you're a big James Franklin fan, and while he is wonderful as a home underdog or even a home favorite on the road, 9-17-2 against the spread, Clay. I got to take the Terps here. Again, it's gross. It's not exciting, and let's just hope Tua's little brother doesn't turn the ball over like he did versus the Wildcats.
You know, it's interesting. I looked at this game. I laid off of it because of how bad Penn State looked against Indiana. So I get, if Penn State had come out and I lost that game, I thought they were going to dismantle Indiana. I didn't think it was going to be close. Instead, they played really poorly. And so if they had crushed Indiana, I would have been inclined to take Maryland here. I think that at some point they're going to play well. I just laid off of it. And by the way, the line has, when I saw it early this week, it was like 11.5 or 12. And I just checked, it's all the way down to 8.5. So that number has moved a lot. All right, let me hit you with a bunch of games. You can react to them as you see fit. Notre Dame, Clemson. Obviously, the big Dabo attention. I've got Notre Dame -2.5 to cover and win, and I'm on the under 45.5. I've got Rutgers plus the points against Ohio State. I love Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm just not sold on this Ohio State offense otherwise. Rutgers defense, decent. 18.5 feels too high. I'm on the under in 3 different games early. Wake and Duke, A&M and Ole Miss, and Nebraska at Michigan State. Those are like the first 5 or 6. I'm also betting the Iowa Northwestern under, which is like the lowest under that we've ever seen. Do you feel strongly about any of those games in particular?
I think you're pretty ballsy to take that Ole Miss under. That one could get out of hand. I don't blame you for being the contrarian there, but that one scares me. Look, you got to take the Iowa under. Just when Iowa had a historic under a couple weeks ago, it went under by 2 scores. So, yeah, I don't blame you for that one either. As far as Rutgers go, I'd put them on my long list, Clay. I said 18.5. This is not an Ohio State team. And I think you and I spoke about this, that we're still not sure what their identity really is. They're not necessarily
I
built
agree.
to blow teams out, right? They did play well against Penn State, but I have not figured it out. This is one of those spots where I could see Rutgers keeping it really close. Do I think Rutgers is going to win the game? Unfortunately, I don't. And those are the types of underdogs I'm looking for. I want to see those dogs that I don't have to sweat, right? Like, at no point in time was I worried about Kansas covering the 9 last week. I was more worried about them being able to win the game outright.
All right. Then I've got Mizzou plus the points against Georgia. On some level, this feels like an eerie reflection of what we already saw when you had the Kentucky Wildcats at 5-0, all full of vim and vinegar, go on the road and just get obliterated. And I still think on some level they haven't recovered from it. But Mizzou played Georgia really well last year in Columbia. And 15.5 just feels steep to me without Brock Bowers. At some point, I feel like Carson Beck's going to throw a couple of picks and not play well. Do you have a read on that game?
This game's tough because Georgia, in theory, is in a potential letdown spot, right? They just throttled their big rival, Florida. And then on the flip side, do you really want to go against, well, in my number one team in the nation, not necessarily anybody else's, but I have them in the number one spot. So I think you kind of just have to say, this is a game I'd like to pass on. There's 60 other games on the board. Unfortunately, I would love to make a case for Mizzou. They've been a wonderful underdog all season long. I just think Georgia might be too much for them to handle.
I've got Pitt as a big underdog against Florida State. I'm probably going to be the only person in America with Pitt plus 21.5. I've got Vandy plus 12.5. I've got Michigan totally blowing out Purdue. And again, I think this is an off-the-field special. And then I've got Kentucky, Mississippi State under, Miami, NC State under, and then the Cal, Oregon over. That is the remainder of my college football bets. Anything that you kind of jump out at you in a big way?
I wanted to make a case for Mississippi State. I just couldn't get it done. Kentucky last week in Clay, we watched that game at your house. Couldn't win either way, if we're being honest. Kentucky kind of gave Tennessee all they could really handle. Do you really want to take Vanderbilt? Oh, gosh. I know Auburn's offense isn't built to beat anybody by double digits.
Auburn's offense is not that great. I don't think they'll score much more than 28 or so. And I think I think Vanderbilt will score 17 or so at least. That's kind of the way that I work through and end up with Vandy. And again, I'll probably be the only person betting that, just like I'll probably be the only person betting Pitt.
I actually like Pitt. I have not gotten
Michigan?
to the with Penn State on deck, with all the drama going on right now, do I think Harbaugh cheated? It kind of looks like Harbaugh cheated. just from what I've seen. Again, sometimes when you're scrolling the Twitter world or catching just things here on the internet, they can be a little biased. But there's some strong allegations there. And he may be the new head coach of the Raiders. But that's for another day. We're going to talk gambling. Purdue. How did Purdue even score any points against Nebraska? Oh, wait, that's because Nebraska fumbled twice. Literally, Purdue, what has happened to this team? A couple of years ago, they were so fun to bet, and now, well, they've just really fallen off.
Well, they don't have Jeff Brom anymore. That's a big
Well, there you go. No Jeff Brom is going to be painful. I don't want it to have anything to do with Michigan right now.
You mentioned Oregon earlier. Do you like the over in the Cal-Oregon game?
Let me look and see what I had written down in my notes with that, Clay, because I definitely don't want to take the under.
I've got it over 57.5. I mean, Cal, you mentioned, loses 50-49. They basically flipped the script. They were a defensive team earlier in the year. Now they're scoring points. I think Oregon's going to put up 45 or 42 at least on them, over 40. And I feel like Cal will score a couple of touchdowns. I like that one. That's my whole college football slate. So I got 17 picks. You can go check them out at OutKick.com. Anything else?
As far as that over goes,
landscape?
Three teams have hung 50 already on. It looks like the Ducks are going to score 50 by themselves. I could see it being 51-34 and would not be surprised in the slightest.
All right, NFL. We already mentioned the Thursday night game. I'm on the under and I would be inclined to take Titans money line if I were going to take a side, but I'm kind of staying away from the number. Here are my NFL picks. Frankfurt, Germany. This is an early kick on Sunday. Don't let it sneak up on you. I'm taking the over, which basically the entire public will be on, I think. I've got the Rams plus the points at the Packers. Vikings at Falcons. I was hoping they were going to stick with Desmond Ridder. I made this bet before Heineke came in. I think Heineke is the better quarterback, so that has me a little bit nervous. I've got Seahawks, Ravens over, and Cowboys, Eagles over. That's my OutKick 6-pack. What do you like in the NFL?
Clay, I actually played one NFL game this week. I did a ton of teasers, so let me rattle through a couple of those really quick. Bills, Panthers, Dolphins. And again, if the Titans are 2.5, they're in Tennessee. They fall into that category as well. I can't believe you want to take some of these teams with just quarterbacks that I'm shocked are in the NFL. I mean, with the Falcons and Vikings, I want no part of that game. I want no part of Rams.
Well, I took the under again. I thought it looked good with Desmond Ridder going up against whoever the Vikings are playing, right? Without Kirk Cousins. I can't even remember the guy's name. And the Falcons haven't been able to score all year, but that's got me a little bit nervous now.
Yeah, I can see. I definitely think Heineke is probably an upgrade. He's serviceable enough. But, man, there's just some gross games. Rams, Green Bay. I mean, Brett Ripon, Jordan Love. There's just so many games this weekend that feature guys that I don't want anything to do with it. I think some of the sharp guys might say, well, then there's their value because people don't know who they are or they don't know what their drop-off is from the starting quarterback. I got some more work to do. I'll leave it at that, but I'll tell you what I did play. And I played the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know how they won that game versus the Browns the other last Sunday, but I will take it. I will absolutely take it. 3 late touchdowns to get the cover. Look, Geno Smith, I have been really not nice to Geno. We'll call it that. Ever since he played at West Virginia and he got in a fight with the tarp, me and Geno have been kind of battling. But this year, Geno and I are seeing eye to eye. I bet the Seahawks twice so far. I bet them in Detroit, and I bet them at home against the Cardinals. And this is the exact same reason why I bet them in Detroit. This Seattle team does really well in the road underdog situation, and that's because Pete Carroll. He's been with them for 5 seasons, and he's 60+% ATS in non-conference on the road. This guy prints money. 5.5 is one of those lines in the NFL, Clay, that I love because usually the dog wins outright. Now, here's a Ravens team that pretty much handled the Cardinals last week. But if you watch the first half with a Ravens fan like I did, there was a lot of mistakes being made there. And as somebody who's holding a 20-1 Ravens ticket, I don't want to discredit how well this defense has been playing. But guess who they play the next 2 weeks? Oh, wait, the Bengals and the Browns. Do they really care about the Seahawks team? I think a lot still gets made, too, about that 10 a.m. Start, Pacific start, if you will, because you got to travel across the country. This isn't the 1980s anymore. Everybody is fine. They are there. They are acclimated. They are professional athletes. So my best bet this week in the NFL is Seattle. But I'm going to be really honest with you. I didn't really get to the window with anything else as of yet.
All right. She's at Kelly in Vegas. She's not great at ordering wine, but she's pretty good at picking games. I will see you next week. Get your bets in. This has been The Fade. If you're going to be down in Austin, look for Kelly at the Kansas State and Texas game. And I can't wait for kickoff tonight for Titans Steelers. Again, I'm on the under. Kelly, I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Clay.